guys, welcome back to my channel to a brand new video. This is my September reading wrap up. So I read 12 books in September, which isn't amazing for me, but I did read a lot of chunky books that I've had on my TBR for a really long time. So I'm really excited to share them with you today and be finally done with them on my TBR. I'm just going to jump straight into it because my wrap ups are always way too long. So the first book that I read was Faking with Benefits by Lily Gold. Lily Gold is one of my new favourite romance authors. I think her books are just absolutely fabulous. I really enjoy them and I think they have great plots. They're all reverse harem, just in case you don't like that. But this one I really enjoyed. It's the first book I didn't give 5 stars to, I think. I gave it a 4. It was 5 all the way through until the end, and I felt like the drama that happened was just a bit too far for me then to forgive and want these characters to be together, do you know what I mean? It went a little far, but I really enjoyed this story. It's basically about these guys who have a podcast together giving relationship advice, and then this girl who's never been in a relationship but she lives near them, or they're her best friends. Yeah, she lives in the building with them and they're really good friends. Some of them have a crush on her anyway, and she asks for their advice on how to date because she is terrible at doing it. And so they set it up as part of the podcast. They say to their viewers, you know, we're going to teach you how to date for a certain amount of time and we'll update you on the results. Just as a fun podcast special, and of course it always goes a bit further than the fake dating. So it was really enjoyable. I had a great time. I really enjoyed the reasoning behind the fake dating, the fact that they were all very open about it. They were like, yeah, we're talking to the whole world about this fake dating scenario. It was just so interesting. I think this book was a little long. I was reading it on ebook because I don't own it yet, and I was quite surprised to find out it was like almost 600 pages, or maybe it was 600 pages, something like that. I was quite surprised, and I do feel like it may have gone on a little too long. But other than that, I really enjoyed this book. I really love Lily Gold's books, and these cute cartoon covers that her books now have are so beyond cute. I cannot wait to own them all on my shelves. Next, I read The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the third and final installment into the Inheritance Games trilogy, and I'm so glad that I finally know the whole story behind this. I really enjoyed this series. I think that it is one of the best YA murder mysteries out there and very reminiscent to Knives Out, as you've probably heard a million times, but it is so true. It is exactly the same as that movie, and I love that movie. The only thing I'll say is with every book, more happens that doesn't need to happen, and it kind of takes away the fun of the story for me, and it's gotten to the point now where I'm like, anything could happen, to the point of ridiculousness, because there's no limits in this series. So yeah, I kind of got a bit far from me. I can't remember a lot about it already, but I remember giving it 3 stars. I know I did that, but I think it was a bit middle of the road. I didn't mind the love triangle in this series, but I feel like in the third one I was kind of like, what's happening here? So yeah, overall I think maybe it shouldn't have been 3 books. I think it either should have been a duology or just 1 book would have been quite nice. I would still recommend this though, because it's still a very fun story to follow, and I really enjoy a murder mystery, and I don't seem to read a lot of them, but I'm just not sure how much I love it by the end. Then I did a reread of Your Dad Will Do by Katee Robert. I reread the first book in this series, or maybe this is the first book, I don't know. I read one of the books in this series a little while ago and I thought, oh, I need to make sure I reread this one. I did. There's not much to it. It's a very short book. I've already reviewed it. I gave it 5 stars, I think. I'd say it's more like a 4.5 now that I've read other smutty novellas, but for the sake of changing a rating, I'm not going to. I gave this 5 originally. I'm sticking with the 5 now. There's not much to it. It's like girl takes revenge on her cheating boyfriend by sleeping with his father. Why do I read the things I read? I don't know. Why do I talk about them on the internet when they're that embarrassing? I also don't know. Then I read The Devil Makes 3 by Tori Bovalino or something like that. Sorry, I can't find my copy. I don't know what I've done with my copy anywhere, but I can't find it. I was very intrigued by this story. It follows someone who works in a library and then finds the book of the devil and basically unleashes the devil and is then haunted, and yeah, it goes from there. Obviously, I loved the library setting because who wouldn't? I really enjoyed the kind of love interest in the story. I thought it was quite interesting. I think overall my main criticism would be it's just lackluster. I gave it a 3 stars. It was probably a low 3 star. I did listen to it in one sitting, so it was very easy to devour, but is it good? I don't know. Very graphic. There were some bits that were literally like, ew. I can see why it was adult for that reason, but the characters gave me YA vibes, but that's fine. That's not a criticism. I just think it hasn't stuck with me at all. Okay, it's been almost a month since I read it, but I don't remember anything about it. I don't care about it. So that doesn't sit well for me, or I kind of guess look good on the book. I do remember thinking it was dragging by the end, but then I also remember the ending being quite rushed. So I really don't know what to tell you. Clearly my thoughts are not in order with this book. I guess I'm just going to move on because I don't remember anything about it, and I'm sorry. I wish I could say more, but I'm literally sat here like, did I even read this book? Who knows? Then I read Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. Actually, even though I didn't read them in this order, I'm going to talk to you about all of them at the same time, because I read this month Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash in 1 month. I mean, technically I actually finished this in October, but literally no, I'm not doing that. I read the majority of it in September. So I read all of these in 1 month after struggling to read the series for 2 whole years. I loved the beginning of the series. I started it in 2020. I think it was so fascinating. And then the books got to be this big. This one's like 1,000 pages. There was just no need. And I couldn't get on board with name changes and places getting... Oh, it was just so confusing and so many POVs that I kind of gave up. And I made it my mission to finish it by the end of the year. And I did it the same month I made it my mission. So September was a good month. But these books are the reason I didn't have enough time to read so many big other books, because I was too busy reading 1,000 pages. Starting with Empire of Storms, I gave this 3 stars, which is quite low for me in this series. The only one I've given lower than this is Air of Fire, which I think I gave a 1. It's just that this was kind of very focused. It was very focused on the action. I don't feel like we got any like slow moments. I was very, very stressed all the way through. And it gets to the point where, I don't know if you have ever experienced this, I kind of get it in Wings of Ruin as well, even though I love that book, where there's too much fighting and I start to glaze over. I can only read about high action sequence scenes for so long before I'm like, oh my god. And I can only read about so much preparing and planning for war before I'm done with that, and I don't want to read it anymore. That was kind of the case with this. It just got so repetitive. It was 700 pages of just non-stop action. And then we went into Tower of Dawn, which is actually simultaneous with this one. So a lot of people do a dual read where they read a chapter of this and then a chapter of this. I would definitely be interested in doing that in the future. I think that's a great idea. What I think would have been a great idea is if these chapters were just put into this book, because this book has 0 action. I like this more. I gave this a 4 stars. So this is what happens to Kehl while this is happening in this book. I liked this book a lot. I really liked how slow paced it was after just finishing this. But what I think would have made both of these books better is if we'd combined them and had high action scenes followed by slow chapters, which I know people do when they do their dual read. But I shouldn't have to be doing that to make the book good. It should just kind of be good anyway. So I think a mistake was truly made here when these books were separated. But then it did make me really enjoy my read of this. So I guess that was fine. Because this was 650 pages of nothing, but in a good way. So yeah, my criticisms, one's too fast, one's too slow, I guess, should have been combined. But then I read Kingdom of Ash, and again, as I said, this is 1,000 pages, which is just too much. It was already not going to be great, because I was like, why is it this long? Why? But I read it and I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars overall. I feel somewhat disappointed by the series now. I've just got foundation all over it, so that's great, isn't it? I've got an orange blooming book now. I have the exact same criticisms in this as Empire of Storms. It was too quick, too fast paced, too much fighting, not enough slow moments to digest what we had just read. And I listened to a lot of this in the car driving to Manchester, which took 6.5 hours. So I did listen to it for 6.5 hours, and there was a point where I just sat in the services and was like, oh my god, give my ears a break. I cannot do any more fighting. So maybe it's better to read this in chunks, but with how long it is, you've kind of got to prioritise a lot of time to it. I enjoy how the series went, and I don't feel like, like the ending, the big fight scenes and things, I think they were really well paced, and I really liked the aftermath, seeing what happened and things like that. I did really enjoy it. I'm trying not to be spoilery here, but I think overall in this series, the beginning books are my favourite. I think that they've got a lot more charm to them. I really like Selena Sardothian, seeing her defeat and being in Endovia, and it's so beautiful. And something else that happened, maybe I just forgot, not really registered that it happened, but she made a vow in one of the first few books that I don't think she ever carried out. Unless she did and I'm just like completely not remembering it. I'll Google it. But if that's the case, I'll be very disappointed. But I really much preferred the first few books to these books. But I'm so glad to be finished with this series after 2 whole years, almost 3 years of reading them. And I definitely enjoyed them, don't get me wrong, and I really want to do a reread in the future. And as I said, I will be combining the 2 reads. But yeah, I would definitely recommend the first few books more than the last few myself. Okay, so I know we just jumped around a bit, but let's just go back in time. I read The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. You can find a full review for this on my Instagram because I was part of the Bookstagram tours. But for a brief summary... Oh my god, I almost fell off my bed. What I absolutely loved about this book is how it gives such harsh truths. I was literally like shocked reading this, and I think that's how you're supposed to be, you know. My mouth was agape a lot of the time. And what I really enjoy about Tiffany D. Jackson's works are that there's no holding back. It is blatant discrimination and racism in these books. Obviously, I cannot really speak much on it. It is more something you'd have to find out from an Own Voices reviewer as to whether the representation for racism was good. But I will say it's very hard to read for me. So the fact that that's hard for me to read, I can only imagine how it is for black readers and the characters of the book to experience and to read. I just love her books sometimes. I feel like White Smoke was such a disappointment to me, but this is tied into White Smoke, and now I'm so intrigued to go read that book again because wow. Yeah, I'm just so intrigued. I really enjoyed the fact we had multimedia. There was use of like podcasts to tell us information, which is such a great way of getting a load of info to us without having to be like info dumpy or anything. It just kind of gives you the information you need, you accept it, you move on. I love that. I really do enjoy that, especially in mysteries and things, which I suppose you can consider this because there is a mystery around what's happened to Maddie and the prom. I really enjoyed Maddie as a character. I was so invested. Definitely a very good read. My only criticism in this is there is a character that cheats on his girlfriend emotionally, and I think it could be argued physically, that I'm a bit confused as to why, because it kind of takes your anger and misdirects it towards the wrong thing. And I think if that hadn't been included in the book, I could have focused my anger more on where it should have been. But instead I was also getting angry at this character doing this thing, and I felt like he was the wrong character to get angry at. That I was a bit confused about as to why that happened. But that is the only criticism I have. This book was amazing. Otherwise, I gave it 4 stars. It is a retelling of Carrie by Stephen King, but that means nothing to me. I've never read Carrie, and if it's a movie, I've never seen it. I don't know. But if that means anything to you, great. Enjoy it. It was definitely a very good but hard-hitting read, so proceed with caution. Next, I did a buddy read with my friend Jade, and we read My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. We are trying to read all of Daphne's books, because I loved Rebecca so much. So obviously, having loved Rebecca and given this like a 5 stars, it was one of my favourite books in the world. I had high hopes for this one, and I went with a 4. I was torn by a 3 or a 4, but I think when I sat down and really thought about the book and spoke to people about the book, I realised how clever Daphne du Maurier's writing is, and therefore I gave this book a 4 stars. My Cousin Rachel follows Philip, who has a cousin Ambrose who's kind of taken him in as more like a father figure to him, and so he lives on Ambrose's mansion he lives in Ambrose's estate. Ambrose has this kind of condition where he's lacking in vitamins and vitamin D and things, so he has to go abroad in the winter to try and gather some of that vitamin D. And he ends up in Italy, and he meets Philip's cousin Rachel, and he ends up marrying her. And then, after a few suspicious letters, Ambrose ends up dead, and Philip is suspicious that Rachel did it. And it's just literally following it on from there, and not a lot happens. If you've read Rebecca and you didn't like the slowness of Rebecca and the monotony of Rebecca, you will not enjoy this story. If you did enjoy that because you found it creepy and adding to the suspense, then you will probably really like this. I did. I think the fact that I could see what had obviously happened, and yet I was still manipulated by certain characters into feeling a different way. Knowing I was being manipulated was the most impressive thing. Like, I knew what happened because I'd read the introduction in this book, which spoils the book for you, by the way. I tried to read it at the end of 2020 and I read the introduction, it spoiled the end for me. So even reading this book, I knew the ending and I still doubted myself because of how manipulative the character is and how Daphne du Maurier has written this character. Oh, I was so impressed. Truly very impressed. However, the ending happened. It's like 2 sentences. And I was like, what? I feel like, sorry, like we need more explanation. I love the ending of Rebecca where it kind of just drops a bomb and you're like, what? But it has no explanation. But this one kind of drops a bomb, but from nowhere. Like I still didn't get the closure that I got in Rebecca. I don't know answers. I don't have any answers. I don't even know what to say. Like, I was very confused by the ending. Not confused, I understand what happened, but confused as to why that choice was made to not explain that. However, I really, really enjoyed it anyway. I'm really excited to continue on with my read of Daphne's books. And yeah, definitely recommend it, but I think Rebecca is her better book. My final reads were this series, which is by Kehlani Booth. It is her Naughty Novelette series. I have already read these 2, so I'm not going to talk about them. They are rereads. I think I've read this first one 5 times. I really don't need to talk about it. These are very taboo, smutty romances. Not something for you to go into without reading the synopsis. Let me assure you of that one. Her new one is Wrong, and it is a romance between an uncle and a nephew after the nephew's father leaves. And he's struggling with the death of his mother, I believe. So they end up seeking comfort in one another. Not my favourite. I gave this 3 stars, whereas the other 2 for me are 5 stars. But I still appreciate what the author was doing. I just think it wasn't to my tastes. I recommend the series wholeheartedly. If you are into very taboo romance, just remember that it is very taboo. Not to go in blindly, please, because that's why it gets such bad ratings, because people don't know what they're going into. So yeah, a lot of trigger warnings. You need to be checking all the trigger warnings for this one. But such a good book in regards to what the author is trying to do. It's just not for me personally. But I still enjoyed it. And I will still definitely be continuing the series. I cannot wait for the next one. I'm just patiently waiting. I will read everything Kehlani Booth releases slowly but surely as they happen. So that is everything for my September wrap up. I can't believe that happened so quickly. Wow. I'm very pleased. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have read any of these books, let me know down below and let me know what your thought was. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.